Welcome back to Total Freedom Radio with Rina Lynn, the show that's all about raising the bar of knowledge, healing hurting people, and spiritual warfare. And we're back tonight with my friend Sharon Phipps, and we're still talking about narcissism and what's going on in this nation. And I'm going to call this show Going No Contact with Sanity because that seems to be what our children and a whole lot of other people are doing. So we're just free form tonight having a conversation. And I want to say that I want to dedicate this program and every program, the Total Freedom Platform, to Jesus Christ and his ways and manners and his laws. And that's what we want to honor and go forth. So, Karen, that um, title, Going No Contact with Sanity, give me some feedback on what that means to you.
All right, we're diving in. I have no answers, people. Feel free to write comments in the comment boxes because it always helps with the feed. And Rena could use that, and it's always fun. So I have no answers. So if you are a like to know it all kind of person and you've got some, feel free to tell me what the answers are. I do know that Rena has done some talks in her previous presentations on how Satan is the father of narcissism because he is the father of lies. Now, a part of that is delusion. One of the things that I would say is that when Satan tells a lie, he actually does believe himself. you know, you can get to a point where you cross over into a delusion. So, one of the things that psychologists teach you is once you realize that you are in a relationship with a narcissist and you find yourself divorced, we're using divorce here because I'm divorced from a narcissist, but it could be a parent, a brother, a sister, a boss, or someone, that you have two choices to go no contact for your healing, absolutely no contact, or you do a limited contact where you behave in such a way that when you answer that person, that you're answering them as if you're talking to a third party. Like if I ever had anything come up with co-parenting in court, I always answered my narcissist as if I was talking to the judge, not the narcissist. A lot less drama when you do that. You're respectful. Like if you can't talk to your narcissist, you do all of your answering as if you're talking to the judge. You just stay out of a lot of arguments and a lot, you answer factually, you answer to the point. You don't use the word I a lot because for some reason that offends a narcissist. So you do what they call a gray rock if you look it up. You can also look up robot. There's lots of things that you're calling it, but it's a limited kind of contact where you deal with them, you answer the facts, you stick to the facts, you keep your emotions out of it, you don't give them a lot of feedback. Can be, oh, the sun is up, it's a nice day today.
Well,
That's
to
all,
me, it's
you
more
talk
a
about the weather.
narcissist is all about attention, and they don't care if it's positive
Yes,
attention or negative attention. So what you do,
negative.
you strip the attention out and you deal with just what has to be dealt with nothing, no emotion, nothing.
So that is what you do to not be good feed. So you're not
Mhm.
feeding the narcissistic beast within the person because they want to feed off of you, feed off your emotions, feed off your reactions, have a story to tell. So you just don't give them a whole lot. So whether you go complete no contact, just don't even be in the same state with them anymore. Maybe you need to quit your job. I don't know. Or maybe it's your mother who's the narcissist, so you just go out for breakfast with her on a Sunday morning, maybe it's Mother's Day, and that's it. And then you'll get around to when you're feeling up to getting around again. But because it is your mother, you want to take her out for Mother's Day, but you don't tell her all of your emotions. You give her limited contact and you pay for the scrambled eggs and then you go home. However you have to deal with the narcissist. Okay, so that's what a healthy person's supposed to do. Now let's flip it on the other side. The narcissistic person likes to give you not no contact. They like to give you the silent treatment for punishment. They like to reward you or withhold their emotions. So if you're in a relationship with a narcissist, could be your boss. Your boss wants you to do something, but he won't actually open up his mouth and tell you to do something. He just wants you to magically jump inside his head and know that those reports need to be done Friday night. Friday night comes, He never asked for them. You didn't know. And he's chewing you out for not turning in the reports because everybody always knows, right? And he says, everybody in the whole office knew those reports were due and you didn't do them, and then you get chewed out because everybody, when it's not everybody, that's just a form of enmeshment. Um,
Manipulation.
yes, of manipulation. He is him, the corporation is him, and all the employees are him. There are no individuals. What's ever inside his head, just because he had a thought cross the brain barrier there, everybody in the whole corporation, without him communicating out of his mouth, is supposed to know it. So now you've got this person with Satan being the father of lies, the ultimate narcissist, starts believing in their own lies. That's called delusion, right? So you're delusional. If and our society lately has been loving delusion.
Yes.
They're teaching in school, have been teaching in school for years. That's your truth. That's a truth. My truth is the opposite truth, and we're both true. No, the truth is the truth, and a lie
Been
is a
taught that for
lie.
years. Yes. Yes.
The sun is not the
Combat it.
moon. The sun is the sun. Scientific research nowadays doesn't have fact. It's all more on theory, and you could have this theory
I
and that
identify
theory.
as.
Yes, I identify as. What are your pronouns? You were God created you in your mother's womb as a male or as a female, and you came out there. And there, when you're not living in a delusional world, you don't, you believe people have done you wrong. They can be real offenses or they can be perceived offenses. So now you have a child who's bonded with, I'm divorced, I have more than one child. You have a child who's bonded with the other parent. That means they're buying into their delusion of what happened in events and everything. And even if that child all of a sudden loses relationship with the narcissist, they still are way over here in their delusional world about what they believed with you because that's been settled.
Well, and
So
they'll
I don't
take
know
a
how.
kernel of truth and blow it completely out of proportion.
Yes. And I did have one of my children come, I have two boys, two girls. So one of my gals did come to me, and in her pain, I saw that she was in pain. I took the response of everything she accused me of. I sincerely apologized for. She didn't want to be in pain anymore. She wanted relationship. She wanted reconciliation. And I went with it. And it wasn't until post reconciliation that she'd just start cracking up and she'd say, I can't believe I was so mad about that. I didn't have all the facts. I didn't, now I know more. And well, what was I supposed to do? You were a child when I got divorced, and now you're a 30-year-old woman. I can have conversations with you um, about narcissists are usually known for not being faithful or pornography or whatever, but you don't have those conversations with the 10-year-old.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean? You don't have, or whatever the narcissist is doing in your life. Sometimes female narcissists are known for burning through money like it's on fire. You
Or
know what I
men.
mean? And there's a divorce just because the other person's trying to save the family financially and send you to college someday. Your children have to go to college and I can't if I stay married to you, or whatever the ultimate troubles, because each narcissist has their own favorite destructive modes, changes with personality. Some people were narcissistic and drinkers, or narcissistic and druggers. Now you got a whole nother layer on narcissistic abuse with all the money going to support a habit. So these are not conversations you have necessarily with 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds. But then when they get to be older, in their 30s, after they've survived their being crazy when they're in their 20s, um, now you have different conversations. But then I have one child who, I'm sorry, it is allergy season.
It is
But then
in Texas too.
I have one child who is living in a delusional space. He believes he's female when he's male, and uh, it's been years now. when he was living at home, he was 21 years old and ran away. And I remember thinking that was really funny because he could have just said, Mom, I'm moving out. He was 21 years old. And on some level, too, I was wondering, he's 21 and he's still living at home. What am I going to do? I was wondering how to get him out. So, there's this, well, you ran away, which is kind of funny, but you're actually of age. You should be thinking about spreading your own wings anyways. But in all of that, I found out it was because he wanted to be identified as a female. So I get the phone call, Mom, if you do not accept the fact of my gender female name, then I can't have a relationship with you anymore. And I remember thinking, well, who made all these rules? Why can't you just say you're a girl and I can just call you by your birth name? I gave you that name. I don't really see me calling anybody a different name than the name I gave them on your birth certificate, because I'm not very good with names anyways. I can never remember your other name. I'm going to call you the name I've called you for the last 21 years. But all of a sudden he's got all these rules that if I don't follow, then he's not going to have a relationship with me. And he did no contact on me. Now it's been a few years and we're going out and he's in his 20s. So, I feel like you get into a lot of trouble within your 20s. And I'm worried about our 20-year-olds. You have
Yes,
a
me too.
child, you have a child who's 20, 30-ish that are Charlie Kirk assassinated. You had gunfires on ICE. You had school shootings. These are young people. We talked about on the last program when my father and mother, who are in their 80s, wanted to be naughty. They had a cigarette out behind the bus garage. You think of Elvis Presley in the 50s, and the trouble was not the trouble that kids can get into today. Now, if you want to believe you're a furry, an animal, delusional, completely delusional. How's that going to work? How are you going to be a furry and be a waitress?
Well,
How are
what
you
gets
going to
me
be a
too is
furry
these classrooms,
whole
like I've
job?
read about classrooms where they're giving them their water out of bowls. They're letting them meow, and
Yes.
I'm like, "You're feeding the delusion. How are you supposed to get these kids into reality so they can be
In
functioning adults in society?"
in one of our high schools right now, in my hometown where I'm sitting talking to you from, they have a litter box full of little fluffy balls, and the furries can go sit in the litter box for a little while the teacher's delivering the lesson, because it makes them feel better.
Are they gonna get
And
that on the job?
I couldn't imagine being a car salesman and saying, "Oh, I'm going to go sit in my litter box while you decide which car you want to buy." I how does one even function? So, do you support the delusion? And I think Charlie Kirk had it right. Is that no, you don't. You speak your truth, even though you'll probably be hated and it won't be received because of your great love for that person. You
Well, and I
cannot
think as
continue
parents and as
in the delusion.
society as a whole, we're supposed to be moving people toward mental health. We're supposed to be moving
Yes.
people toward factual living and reality, and the longer that it goes on that that doesn't happen, the sicker as a society we're gonna get inside our home or overall. Sharon, give me just a minute. Let me
Yes.
stop and acknowledge our sponsors. Folks, this platform is all paid for by sponsorship and by donations, and it is, sometimes it gets a little hefty on this end. So if you would like to help support the Total Freedom Radio Show, and please drop a donation or use the sponsors and buy stuff for them. And another thing that I would like is I'm putting together a book of people who have stories. Maybe they've had a divorce from a narcissist, or maybe their mother or father, maybe they've had a rough story. What I'm looking for is the people who got through that and got on the backside. Contact me at askrinalyn.com and send me your story. I'm compiling a book of different people's stories, and everyone will have their own chapter. Give me just one moment so we can acknowledge our sponsors. If you love healthy food and supplements, find the USDA organic green and white emblem on my website. This is my affiliate link, and it'll take you straight to the Brighteon.com store. This is the Health Ranger store, and all of his products are tested, and it's where I get items for myself. You can also find a link on my videos if you go there to watch them. Thanks for supporting my sponsors. Help support this show while protecting your family. Go to rena-theinsurancechick.com and fill out a contact sheet. I'll get back to you and get you an insurance quote. I do all kinds of life policies and annuities. I'm a certified college planner and can also hold a certification in debt-free life policies and infinite banking. Contact me today. All right, we're back with Sharon Phipps, and we're talking about just the has as our society as a whole has seems to have gone no contact with sanity. We seem to be supporting things that just are spiraling out of control and getting worse and worse and worse. And our children are suffering. We're suffering now because the children are coming back as a backlash against sanity, and we're seeing that played out all across our nation. Some of us are seeing it in our homes. Sharon's been talking about a son that's living a form of delusion and wanting to pull her into it, and she's not the only one. I've talked to several people lately that are dealing with the exact same thing. So, Sharon, as a mom, as a person who's rational, who's Christian, who wants to bring your children back into a place of sanity, of wholeness, what's the answer to this?
I knew you were going to ask for answers. Feel free to put those
What's your
answers in the
opinion of this?
comments.
What's your opinion of this?
I do have some thoughts is that um, to love Jesus is to be in reality, and you know there's persecution with that that can come, and that's all
I know
part of the
that.
deal. And then to believe that there is no God, to believe that when you're dead, to believe in evolution, to believe in all those things, it can lead you down to a place where there's nothing special about life. The only thing in that bucket is emptiness, loneliness, no purpose. And the more hurt you've had in your life, the more you want to jump into that bucket. And I myself wouldn't mind being a furry. It would be a whole lot easier to pretend the pain's not there and to pretend I'm a little kitty cat, meow, 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 no cares, no worries, don't have to worry about life or living. But we're not called for that. You have a responsibility to live your life, it's God given. But I get the pull of the delusional world.
Well, and I'm of the
So much
opinion too
easier.
that we are made in the image of God, and part of what's going on is the enemy of men's souls wants to mar that image. And anytime you can get a child, a person to reject the image that God has made them in, to reject their own gender, to reject their parents, their heritage, then you've marred that image. And I think
Yes,
that gives him glory rather than the Lord. And that's it goes
yes.
back to that kingdom war I'm always talking and preaching and writing about. What
And
say you?
psychologists out there, whoever they are, they're not all Christians, they talk about what you need to have a healthy relationship with your mother
Mm.
because it protects you against this delusional world
Well,
that
society talks about there not being a father in the
yes,
home, but what is the effect of there
what is
not
it?
being a mother in their life?
Correct. We've known what it looks like to not have men step up and be men. But now we're living in a world where women aren't stepping up and being women either. And I think it's
Or they're
just
being rejected.
such a satanic attack to have your child believe that you don't love them, that you don't care for
Mhm.
them, that you are an abuser, that to the point that they do no contact on you. And I was surprised in the last couple years that there's a real big movement out there in social media where children mothers are saying, I raised my children, I laid down my life for my children, I did everything I could, and they've gone out and gone no contact on me. Um, I remember having this very angry, not at my child, angry at the father of lies moment where I had broken down in a church service, and I just said, Lord, I had the narcissistic husband, I had this, I had that. I also had a brain tumor removed, so I had health issues in there. And it just seems like every time I get my feet underneath me, another wallop. I also had another child who got into her 20s, just not being where she needed to be, into legal issues, just the nicest, sweetest child, the accused of the worst things because we know in this society that the cops just pick everybody up and then they sort through the details later, and so it's just like one financial blow. Lawyers are expensive people.
Yes.
One financial blow right after another, and then when the court stuff was over, then my health went south, and then just and I just remember now my last child is giving me no contact, and just having this come to Jesus moment in church. And I said, I've spent a lot of time in court, and so I said, I don't want my son back in his right mind alone. I'm at the point now where I'm looking at God, who is judge. He sits on the throne. The Holy Spirit, by definition, is our lawyer. That is what it means in the original Hebrew.
Yes, it does.
And got to get that in there. This is a Christian program.
Yes.
And
Amen.
the Holy Spirit's feeling him. And I'm saying to my lawyer, and I'm saying to my judge, my king, my ruler, God. And then you got Jesus, who is our kinsman redeemer. Let's
Yes.
go ahead and
Yes.
get in some Christian
Yes.
here.
We got our
And I'm looking
advocate.
at the Trinity during praise and worship, and I'm saying, I'm so angry about this, not at my child. I'm angry at the father of delusions, the father of lies. And I'm saying to myself, it's not enough that I get my child back. I want restitution. I've been in court enough to know that when you sue a company who's done something maybe medically that injured you or your family members, we get restitution in this nation. I want restitution. And I named 1,000. Then a couple months later, I felt the Lord say, add a zero to it. And anybody who wants to, feel free to pray with me, because I think we fight in spiritual battles. It's the only answer I have. And if the Apostle Paul, a murderer, because we've talked about him, can come to the Lord and become the Apostle Paul, a murderer of Christian Jews as Saul, if the man hanging on the cross, the two thieves that were hanging on the cross next to Jesus, if he can spend his eternity in heaven, I've been asking myself, what is too far? How far is too far for redemption?
Even
And
for
even
prayer.
with my narcissistic abuser, I even had to
Let
come
me
to the
throw
truth.
this in right here, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but it just fits so well with your children. I've been reading Jonathan Cahn's book, the Josiah Manifesto, and love Jonathan Cahn stuff. But toward the end, he's talking about the God of the impossible, and he's talking about get your prayers to the impossible level. We're praying easy prayers that we think that we deserve or can have, but I really thought about that and I prayed about it. And I got out my computer because you know me, if I got a computer in my lap, I can write anything. But I thought I'm sitting with my computer in my lap and a blank page, and I'm praying. I'm like, okay, God, I'm going to make an impossible list. And literally, I've got 5 or 6 things on my list. I'm not even going to tell you what they are, except between me and God. They're utterly impossible. And so that's been my
Mhm.
prayer. If you are the God of the impossible, if we're supposed, he said, ask. If you are the God of the impossible, here's my list. It's in your lap. So it goes into what you're saying here is we as Christians, and I'm not even going to talk about the whole of the nation. I'm talking about the Christians. We have diminished God and our concept of Him so greatly that I love what he's the propitiation, he's the advocate, he's the kinsman redeemer. That has
Mhm.
to come out. So forgive me for interrupting you, but I just had to throw that in.
Yes. So I'm on a roll. So if you're watching this on social media, put the name of your wayward kid who's just a lost cause. It could be to
Amen.
drugs, it could be to any delusion, it could be to crime, it could be to any delusion. Slip it in the comment, because I don't mind just praying. I just praying to God to make them one of the 10,000 for restitution. And we are
Amen.
having a revival over the recent months of young people, and
Now
even with
define
Charlie
that
Kirk.
10,000. Define that 10,000 retribution so they know what you're
I want
exactly saying.
I want the impossible kid. I don't want forgive me. At this point, I've had so much narcissistic abuse in my life. If your kid is a nice kid, okay, I'll pray for him, but that's not the kid I'm talking about. I'm talking about the kid
The
who's
lost
just
kid.
completely lost. And I don't mean lost as in they're a nice kid and they'll go to church, but they don't. I mean lost. They're
Lost
out
in
doing
sin,
things.
completely irredeemable.
They could be in jail. They could be in prison right now. They've done things that have brought shame to the family or have brought hurt where you're not even sure you want to even tell people that this is your kid. You
Amen.
know, you just don't know what to do because this is not the way you raised your child. But narcissism, delusion, society, they are gone. Your kid is up and gone. I don't know how you get separated out of a narcissistic relationship with all your children intact. As a matter of fact, I think it's rare to even have one child still on your side.
I would
I
agree with you,
mean,
and I've talked to a lot of
the
people.
completely lost, your lost kid. I want restitution. And I don't necessarily mean with me, I mean with Jesus Christ himself, because it's more important that my child is in heaven than he has a relationship with me.
Yeah.
I mean complete restitution to Jesus Christ. And I remember when Charlie Kirk passed on, and then there was this outpouring of just people joining his organization. Um, that's what I want. I want revival. I want restitution. I am so angry about this generation is just so completely lost and bankrupt. And I noticed too that the Lord's been putting a lot of women in pastoral roles in leadership. And I asked the Lord why on that. I think because they need to have a relationship with a mother figure, a female pastor, and also a male Christian role. Both male and female pastors need to come forward
I think
to undo the
everyone
bank.
needs to step up into a calling right now, male or female. We got
Male
a
or
little
female,
over a minute,
oh
Sharon.
Lord.
Tell
Yeah,
us
I
the
don't.
10,000 again. Because what you told me, if and
Yes,
tell me if I
put
get this wrong, for your child being lost and you want him back, but you want 10,000 more with him, not just him. Am I getting that
just on
right?
him. You got that right. I want him plus 10,000, and I want you to make that your prayer too. Go ahead and
It's
get
my
mad at the delusional devil and pray for your kid, but not just pray for your kid. Pray that you get that kid back plus 10,000. I
amen.
think
I love
that revival
it.
is coming. So if you got a lost kid, put it in the comments. If you're watching on, if you're listening on the radio, say your kid's name out loud, and Rena and I will be praying.
We will be praying. And Sharon, I so appreciate your loving, godly heart and your I love the warrior spirit. You know me. Michael Lake always said I was a called in time warrior. And that's the way I pray. I pray those impossible prayers. I pray for the lost that are just I mean, pray for all the lost, but those that I know that seemingly are irredeemable. Man, that's the ones that I want to pray about. That's the ones I want to write to and preach for and we'll have you back again down the road. I just love these discussions that we have. And just thank you so much for coming on Total Freedom Radio. And you guys, when it gets on YouTube, Rumble, and Brighteon, please like, subscribe, and share. And if you want to support this show, go to Amazon, look for Rina Lynn, Prepare for the End book series, and buy the books and comment on that. Or, excuse me, I can't talk right now. Support our sponsors. And we will see you next week on Total Freedom Radio.